think we've all had frustration with buyers from time to time. Assuming we know how to get them into the office, do a presentation, they sign, they pay a retainer, they agree to work with us. We get them pre-qualified, pre-approved. Now they're a buyer. The next step is to show them property. And that's actually probably the most time-consuming element in the whole process, from the time that they close to the time that you get the lead. There's a lot of little things that happen along the way before they go from a lead to a closing. You have to get them as an appointment, you have to convert them to a client, get them pre-approved, and on, just tons of stuff. But showing property is probably the biggest time-consuming element. So I wanted to talk about some ways that we can shorten that process. Like, would that appeal to all of us? If we could do, and I believe that my role as a real estate professional is to shorten the process. If we took a survey and asked home buyers that have bought or sold a home, and we said, hey, do you want to work with a real estate agent in the future that's going to make the process longer? The answer would be no, right? Like, they may not want to be pressured into the process, and that's not what I'm suggesting, but my suggestion is to make sure that we understand that we're going in this direction. And as long as we're moving in a direction and we're moving, to me that's acceptable. And to you that should be acceptable. I think where we get frustrated is sometimes we want to go from here to here in a matter of a day.
That's good.
That would be good. But that's not the normal chain of events. So I think part of your frustration, Daryl, although you've been working hard with this guy, is really it's been a short window of time. And you're wanting to put that first one to bed. You're wanting to get it to here. And I can understand that. But understand, it is a process. It does take time. And you will get there. I promise you will get there. But if you're moving forward, give yourself a pat on the back. You're doing the right thing. And you want to then be able to manage all your buyers and keep them moving in that direction. And as you fill your pipeline, imagine the funnel looking this way then. Over time, you'll have a big mouth at the end of the funnel with all these closings coming out of the end because you're keeping everybody moving in that direction. Does that make sense? But let's talk about how, with respect to just the showing process, we can expedite it. So I wrote down a couple of things. For starters, and I may bounce around, this is just my opinion, but it worked pretty well, and it's worked pretty well for our veterans, Paul, Wally, and Jennifer. So, if it works, we keep doing it. So I want to identify what typically works. And Paul, Jennifer, and BB's not here, and even Jennifer, if you want to add to what works, feel free to do so because you guys are in the trenches. For starters, assuming they've signed a contract and they're pre-approved, then it's time to show property. I wouldn't show property to somebody unless I was convinced that they could afford the property, right? Because that would be a whole big waste of time. You show them property, you show them tons of property, then they finally want to buy one, and then they find out, oh, we can't get a loan. That's a problem. So assuming that they're a client, they're committed to you, that's covered on another tape. You can watch signing a buyer to a contract. But assuming that they're a client and they're committed to you, and they're pre-approved, and now you start showing property, first of all, a couple of rules. I don't want to say never, but I'll say never. And don't mean it as never. I mean, flexibility is the key to success, but almost always, never show property to a buyer the same night or afternoon you signed them up as a client. Because buying a home's a process. And they may be so motivated and so anxious to go out, but I want to do a good job with them, and there's some preparation that goes in that. And I don't want to just wing it and pick a bunch of listings just for the sake of picking listings. I want to pick the right listings. I'm conscious of my time. Usually I'm booking appointments back to back to back. Hopefully you're thinking in that time frame. So let's say it's 5 to 8 on a Wednesday night, and your first buyer comes in at 5, and they sign a buyer contract. Well, hopefully you're using your time wisely, and you're booking appointments right after that. So it would be physically impossible for you to go out and show property then. You're in the signing contract mode. Does that make sense? And then on Saturday, I would show property, and I would show buyer A property, I would show buyer B property, and I might show buyer C property. 3 different buyers property on Saturday. As I like to say, walk and chew gum at the same time. Spin 3 different plates on a Saturday. Don't limit yourself to just working with one buyer on Saturday, even though you think that they're going to buy. If they're going to buy, they can buy in the window of time you give them. Does that make sense? It doesn't need to take all day. A big mistake that I see a lot of real estate agents do, they've got a pre-approved buyer who's going to buy, and they know that they're going to buy, and they know that they're going to make about $3,000 to $3,500. So they say, you know what? I'm clearing my weekend, Saturday and Sunday, for just the Smiths. Well, hopefully, if you do a good job, the Smiths find the property on Saturday. What are you going to do with the rest of the weekend? And if you fill your schedule up, you'll make it work. I used to tell a story about when I first hired my first full-time administrator. 40 hours a week. There was nothing for her to do. But yet she found a way to get paid for 40 hours a week. She didn't just go home because she had nothing to do. She'd do nothing. She'd read People magazine. She'd answer the phone. She'd do whatever, and she got paid. And, you know, at the end of the week, she'd say, oh my God, it was a busy week. Well, at that time, it may have been a busy week. But now look at where our business is, and look at, you know, what Cindy and Lori do in the course of the week. And they still get paid for 40 hours. So manage your time a little bit better, because if you allot yourself Saturday and Sunday, you'll spend all day Saturday and Sunday with these buyers. So not to beat a dead horse. So number 1, juggle a few different plates on the weekends. Get in your zone and do group appointments. So if you're showing, show on Saturday. Don't do buyer presentations. If you're doing buyer presentations on Sunday, do buyer presentations and don't show. Just better chunk your time together so that you're doing the same thing.
Can I just add one thing to the
Yeah.
book multiple appointments?
Yeah.
What I've started to do is book my buyer appointments that used to be blocked off for an hour and a half an hour at an appointment, and then I'll book them right behind each other, so that I'm not attached if that person doesn't sign, first of all, because I've got another one coming in, and it also shortens the amount of time that I have. You know, I can book more people in less time.
You've got to be more effective in 30 minutes, right?
Yep.
And
You get your point across quicker.
And because you've done that with your schedule consciously, you're prepared to get your point across in 30 minutes. However, if you kept them an hour apart, Paul, you would use the whole hour.
Exactly. And that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
You know,
You
I
use
can
the-
talk to these guys, I can build rapport, I'm an ass, what the hell?
Sure.
You know? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, not
There goes
necessary.
the night.
Right. Okay. Secondly, when you do schedule appointments to show buyer's property, I would limit the number of homes like. If you're working Saturday, and you've got 3 to 4, at least you want to set up your schedule so you can work 3 to 4 buyers. Early on in your career, you may not have 3 to 4 buyers. Your first month in the business, you might not have enough clients to work 3 buyers on a Saturday or 4 buyers on a Saturday. Well, that's okay. But think to the future that when you're gonna work on Saturday, you're gonna work with 3 to 4. If you're working with 3 to 4, doesn't it stand to reason that the probability of you selling a house goes up dramatically? As opposed to you just work with 1 buyer and it's hit or miss with that 1 buyer. I would rather work with 4 buyers and have the probabilities on my side. So when you're chunking your schedule, chunk it together. If you've got 3 buyers or 4 buyers, I would limit it to 4 to 6 homes per buyer. That's it. And again, just like scheduling, when I was new in the business, I would show buyers many homes as they wanted to see. So I could literally spend all day or all weekend with 1 buyer and show them 40 to 60 homes. How many times am I going to get paid? If they find a house. And if they don't find a house, what happens to Brian's frustration? He's worked his tail off and made no money. So limit it to 4 to 6. If you've got a buyer that wants to see more, just say, what I found, and if you'll trust me on this, what I found is that looking at more than 6 homes, and I'm happy to show you as many as you want to see, by the way, but we want to lead them to their conclusion and never want to say no. I'm happy to show you as many as you want to see, but what I found is that after 6, it starts getting jumbled in your brain. And if you want to go out again on Sunday, we can look at another 6 on Sunday. I would rather have that happen than to look at 12 on Saturday. So you've got 10 or 12 that you wanted me to set up. Could you do me a favor and pick out the best 6? Just go over them again and pick out the top 6. Because they can only buy one, right? So why not have them pick out the top 6 and buy one of the top, like, if they can, and by the way, when you ask, people are begging to be led. You ask them to pick out the top 6, what happens to the bottom 6? Is it likely that they would buy one of the bottom 6? Of course not. No, they're gonna buy one of the top 6. So show them one of the top 6. If they pick 6, you could ask them to pick their top 4, right? Because they're gonna look at the top, they're gonna buy one of the top 4, not one of the bottom 2. So you can always narrow and compress time. So be conscious of that. And the answer is no if you don't ask. And always let them know, we can look at 6, but 6 it gets a little confusing. Could I ask you to pick the top 4? Now, how long does it take you to show 4 homes? An hour? Come back to the office and write an offer? So literally, you could work 4 buyers efficiently in one day and write 4 contracts. That's with room to write contracts. Secondly, I always want to leave room to write contracts in my schedule. Because you end up, it's like the empty closet that I've talked about before. You empty a closet, what happens a week later? You go in, you open the door, the closet's full. You leave an empty slot in your schedule, you're showing property from 9 to 11 with your buyer, and say they're looking at all 6 homes, so 2 hours max. You leave them 40 minutes, so 9 to 11:40, you leave 40 minutes to write the P&S, in case they want to write the P&S. You want to strike while the iron's hot. If they don't want to write the P&S, well then you use this time to book more appointments. Or grab lunch, or have some personal time, or relax, or prepare for your buyer B. But always leave room in your schedule. Be assumptive that the buyers, you wouldn't be showing property to these people just because you're not tour guides. Daryl said to me, I'm going to show some property. And the veterans know that I say, so you're a showing agent? No, it says you're a sales agent on your card. So assume that you're going to be selling them the property, so you want to have room to do that.
I even put them in my schedule now as selling's not showing, so it just kind of subconsciously gets in there.
Reinforcing that you have a goal. You know, and we should have started with that. You should have a goal. And your goal, obviously, is to get them to a P&S, but if you don't get them to a P&S, that doesn't mean that you failed, as long as you're moving them closer to a P&S. You know, every buyer is different. Some buyers need a lot of information. They need a lot of hand-holding. Well, that's okay. As long as they're moving forward, then you're okay. Like in Daryl's case. If he pays you the retainer, Daryl, that's a good sign. You know, tell him to bring his checkbook. And if he does that, you know, again, that's a step in the right direction, right? You know, the fact that you confirm that he has financing, that's a step in the right direction. That's a good thing. When you start going this direction, that's a problem. And one great line, when you notice, while I'm talking about it, how many of you have had buyers and you start to know that you're going the opposite direction? Great line is, Paul, are you folks as committed to finding a home as I am in helping you find one? That's not pushy, that's a sincere, concentrated, caring approach. And it really separates the men from the boys. Well, no, as a matter of fact, our motivation has gone down, or this has happened, or that's happened. Are you folks as sincere, are you folks as motivated in finding a home as I am in helping you find one? Okay. So you set up 4 to 6 homes, and you schedule them, and you go out. By the way, let's talk about how much time you allot for each home. We've never really talked about this, but I would say 10 minutes would be max per house, not including travel time. So if I'm scheduling homes, I mean, if I'm going to be away on a Saturday for my wife and my kids or my family. And even though I'm getting paid for it, because I'm focused on selling a house, I'm gonna use my time efficiently. I'm gonna be conscious. I'm gonna be thinking about this. I'm not just going to, how many, Paul and I both know a lot of realtors that just work with buyers, and they consciously dedicate the whole weekend to one buyer. Why? Like, that makes no sense to me. We can get the same amount done in a short amount of time. So 10 minutes per property max, plus travel time. And let your buyers know that, which is the next thing I want to talk about. When they come in, and before you jump in the car and go looking, I would pre-frame as much as possible about what's going to happen today. They don't know what to expect. And they would like, how many of you, when you are going into the unknown, you would like an outline? I mean, nobody's going to be bothered by an outline. Paul and Lynn, I'm really glad to see you. I'm excited. We've set up those 6 properties to show you today. I booked them 10 minutes each, because I figure that any property that you're going to get really interested in, you're going to want to go back and look at a second time. So I didn't schedule a whole lot of time for us to stay at each property. So we kind of have to go quickly. Is that okay? And whatever property that rises to the surface, we can always go back and do a second time. And that's also an assumptive close. I'm assuming that one of the properties is going to rise to the top, and we can go back and look at it for a second time. So I'm going to let her know that.
Brian, for pre-framing, for clients I've got a couple clients that live down in Boston and are relocating up here, so they don't really have an opportunity to go drive by every property that they want to see. I'll let them know if there's a property you don't want the curb appeal of, let me know and we'll just go to the next one.
Great point. And there's a whole lot of things that go under pre-frame. Hey, we've got 6 properties scheduled today. If we pull up any of them and you don't like them, you're not obligated to go in. Just say next and we'll drive right by it. Because people have a tendency to be courteous. Jennifer went to all this trouble to set up this property. We'll go in, even though they're thinking in their head, I wouldn't let my dogs live there. So give them permission to tell you next. Another pre-frame, so there's 2 pre-frames right there. One is time, 2 is we don't have to look at all the property. We don't have to go into every property. Third pre-frame, one of my favorites, is we don't have to look at all 6. At any moment on tour today, any moment, you can tell me, this is the house. In fact, I can't read your mind, so I need you to tell me, this is the one. Please feel free to do that, and I'll take that as a sign that we want to go back to the office and explore it in more depth. Explore it in more depth versus, this is the one you want to buy. Because explore it in more depth is non-committal, right? So it's baby stepping them along in the process. So you don't have to look at all 6. If we find the right house, let me know this is the one. Use the words this is the one, because I can't read your mind. Another pre-frame is what I'd like to do is ask you a favor. Jen and Michael, what I really, we're in this together and I need your help to do a great job for you. So what I'd like to ask is that after we've looked at 2 homes, I'd like you to eliminate one of the homes. In other words, I'd always like one to rise to the top. So at the end of the day today, of the 6 homes, they're gonna keep rising to the top. And at the end, if you have 2 that rise to the top for different reasons, that's okay. We can go back and look at both of them again, so that we can get one that rises to the top. So I need your help with that. So after 2 homes, I'm going to ask you to, so that I can better understand what you like, but more importantly, so at the end of the day, your brain's not jammed with 6 homes. It's really only jammed with 1 or 2. Does that make sense? So those are 4 pre-frames that I do before I go show property. A 5th one is, who's driving? Now, I don't know that there's any right or wrong approach for this, but for me, I'm very conscious of my time. And I also think that buyers, especially a couple, tend to want to have some time alone to talk about it before they're going to make the biggest decision of their life, right? Or one of the biggest decisions. So if they're sitting in my car, even though I'm their fiduciary, even though I represent their best interest, how comfortable are they speaking openly since they know I have a stake in the sale? Probably not as comfortable as if they're by themselves. So I would say, hey, guys, it's okay with me if you ride with me. However, what I found, a lot of buyers like to follow me so that they can talk about things in the privacy where I'm not there. Whatever way you want to do it is fine for you. Personally, I would prefer that they follow me. 2 separate cars, why would I prefer that? Well, number one, to give them the privacy so they the wife can say, honey, I love it, I love it, I love it. And he can say, okay, easy, slow down. And she can say, I love it, I love it. And she can do all the closing. Like he's going to want to buy the house for his wife. Your job's over with. Like he's going to come back and say, okay, this is the one, let's go back to the office and talk about it. So the privacy issue. But secondly, if you're showing 6 homes and we're kind of spread out, you may be showing Nashua and Merrimack. You've got 10 minutes per home, so that's 60 minutes. You may have 10 minutes of travel time from one house to the other, so that's 60 minutes. I personally want this 60 minutes for me so that I can do other things. I can spin more plates. I can pull out my money bag in this 1 hour and call other buyers that I haven't been able to get to on Monday through Friday. On my cell phone, hey Daryl, it's Brian Moses from Caldwell Baker Realty. I'm driving down the highway. We haven't talked in a while, but I'm wondering when would be a good time to get together so that we can get you looking at some property. Oh, next weekend? Next weekend's great. All right, I'm going to drive you down for next weekend. And so that I can do the best possible job for you, and I'm just going to qualify and book the appointment. So I'm going to use that downtime. I'm working with buyers. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to sell these buyers a house, but I'm also going to position myself so that next week is full as well. Does that make sense? How many of you see that that's a good use of your time? Now, the buyers say, you know what, Brian, we love you. We're going to ride with you. You got a nice car. We're going to sit in the back. We're not going to use our gas. We're going to go with you. Okay, great. No problem. I'm still going to make a couple of phone calls in their presence. And I'm going to ask them, would you guys be offended if I made a couple of phone calls? I'm behind in my calls and I just got to call a couple of people. I'll make 2 or 3 phone calls. And, feel free to talk in between communication. I just don't want to offend you. Now, that works pretty well. I won't make as many calls, but I'll make a few. I'll get a couple out of the way. So I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And I'm filling up my pipeline. The other thing is when you get back to the office now, they need that privacy time. Hopefully you get back to the office and they've got it narrowed down to 1 home or 2 homes. What my role is to get it so that it's narrowed down to 1 home. Say, here's what I'd like to do, pre-frame the next step. It looks like you guys have found 2 homes that are of interest to you. And I'm really excited for you because as long as I've been in the business, I find it really hard for a buyer to find 1 home that they're interested in. And you guys have 2. That's great. So I'm confident that you're going to pick the right home. Do you see how that's assumptive? I'm not talking about buying. I'm just using language. I'm just saying I'm really confident that because you have 2, I know that you're going to pick the right home. What I want to do is help you. Let's review your criteria and see which home best suits your lifestyle and your needs. And I've got the listing sheets of both homes. We've narrowed it down. And I say, what do you guys think? Let's talk about them. And they start talking. Well, I think this one comes to the surface, so we picked one. I go, great. Do you guys know what's involved? Do you guys want to take this to the next step? What can they say? That's one dialogue, by the way. Do you want to take it to the next step? They can say, yeah, I think we do. They can say, no, I think we need to think about it. Or they can say, we don't know. All of which I've heard 1,000 times. And that's why we're doing this tonight, because if you know the responses for each of these, you're not going to be surprised when they say, no, I don't think we do. So let's address them. We want to get them to yes, right? And when we get them to yes, we want to get to the purchase and sales process, where we actually fill out a purchase and sale. Yes, how many of you, if they go, yes, this is the one, you can take them to the next step. I would say, let me show you what's involved in New Hampshire. here's a purchase and sales agreement. Don't use the word contract, it's an agreement. Let me show you. We'll fill one out in pencil so that you can be comfortable with it, and I'll answer any questions. And I just literally go through it assumptively and start asking questions. Like, if you could wave a magic wand, when would you like to close? How much are you comfortable putting down for a deposit? Those types of questions. So you get them going. If they say, no, I don't think so, okay, are there any other questions that I can answer for you to help you determine whether or not this is the one? No, I think we're all set. Can I make a suggestion? What I have found is that the best decisions really need to be put down on paper. So, have you ever bought a property in New Hampshire before? Or, even if they say yes, then I would say, how long ago? The market has changed. My goal, by the way, is to get to P&S, right? Remember and visually, it doesn't matter if they say yes, no, or we don't know. My goal is to get a P&S going. Move them in that direction. Even if they don't make the offer, at some point I got to educate them about what a P&S is. So even if they say no, can I make a suggestion? Look, this is the home that rose to the surface. Let's do this. Let me show you the purchase and sale. Let's fill it out so that you can take it home and look at it and review it and see if that spores any questions. If you wish to proceed on it, great. If you don't, that's okay too, but at least you have a better understanding of what's involved in acquiring real estate in New Hampshire. Do you guys have a few minutes so we can do that for you? So that you can take it home. Now, by the way, I don't want them to take it home. But what I found is that answering the questions that they don't know the answers to oftentimes leaves no more questions and they're comfortable proceeding. So your goal is to get them here. If they say we don't know, again, your goal is to get them to a purchase and sale. Well, I can understand your hesitancy. Have you ever bought a property in New Hampshire? How long ago was it? Can I make a suggestion? Let me show you what's involved in buying real estate. If it ends up that this is the home that you wish to pursue, great, we've covered it. If not, it'll be a good tool for you to take with you so that you know when you find the right home what's involved. Because you got to go over that at some point. And that will answer a lot of their questions. This will be an information session for them because they've never been there before. They don't know what's involved. So it's kind of assumptive. And they don't realize how easy it really is. A lot of buyers think that, there's attorneys involved and it's a 20-page document, and I've had tens of buyers literally say, that's it? That's all that's involved? And at the same time, not only do I want to get to the P&S, I want to get to monthly payment and down payment. Maybe you want to get to, if this is the next step, maybe this is even the next step before you go to the P&S. Okay, you're at the office. Before we show you that, let me show you what this property, if you were to pursue this property, what it would mean to you. Are you guys going 5% down or 10% down? So you can figure out down payment. You can figure out closing costs from that sheet that we give you. Or just use a rule of thumb, 3% of the loan amount is typically a good number for closing costs. So that tells them total cash to close. They need to know that number. The reason they can't move forward, they love the house, but they don't know what it means to them. So you giving them this number will answer the question that they don't even know that they don't know. They don't know that that's the roadblock. The other thing that you want to do is you want to show them what the monthly payment is. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance. So based on this house that rose to the top, it's going to, total cash needed to close is going to be $12,650. And your monthly payment is going to be $1,427 a month. How does that work for you guys? Does that work for you guys? They can either say yes, no, or we don't know. Now, we don't know typically won't come because we're being real specific here. Geez, that's a little, what typically will happen if they say no, it's a little high. How high is it? Clarify. Well, we'd really like to be under $1,400 a month. Okay? And there's a bunch of different ways to handle this objection. One way is to offer less money, right? We could offer a little bit less, but to be honest with you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I don't know that the seller will take less. We're in a really hot market. I do know that this will get you the property. So I guess my question is, your comfort level with $1,427 versus $1,399. Let me ask you this, what would it do to you if we made an offer on the property and it was for a little bit less so that your payment was $29 a month more comfortable, but you didn't get the house, somebody else got you the house? And what happens is, they didn't even know they were moving forward in the process, and now they're starting to move forward because of the questions that I'm asking. What would it do to you if you didn't get the house? Well, it would be okay, it's not the perfect house. Okay, great. The other thing that we can do is we can show them their tax savings. Does everybody know how to do that? Real quickly, tax savings. What makes up a monthly payment? Principal and interest, which is one number, taxes, insurance, and private mortgage insurance, if applicable, give you the total monthly payment, right? Is everybody aware that taxes and interest are tax deductible? Of this total monthly payment, what's the biggest number?
Interest.
Interest. Interest is the biggest number. What's the second biggest number? Taxes. Almost all of their monthly payment is tax deductible. So in this example, the total monthly payment, what did I say, $1,427. Let's say that taxes were $400 a month. Insurance was $50, so we've got $500. So that leaves $927.
It's roughly all but about 150 a month.
Yeah, it's not like
Almost across the board,
all but 150.
about, it's like $100 and.
So I'm just we know that this number is taxed, all but this number, right, here's 100 that's not tax deductible. And of this number, $50 goes to principal, and the rest goes to interest. So Jen is right, there's $50
I
here,
wasn't including PMI.
50 here and 50 here, so there's $150. But of this, what's 150 from 1427?
Yeah.
1277, you got a calculator there?
Yeah.
1277 a month is tax deductible. Multiply that by 12.
15,324.
So Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner to be, you now have a tax deduction of
324.
$15,324 per year, that if you made $100,000 last year and paid taxes on that, this year you pay taxes on 85, no. Is that right, 85,000?
84.
Yeah, 84 and change.
84.
That's a big difference. But let's assume you're in the 28% tax bracket. So take this number, Dean, 15,324, and times it by 20.28.
4,290.
So what you paid the Uncle Sam this year, and I've actually had a buyer say, we didn't pay anything this year, we got a refund. To which you really got some work to do. But what you paid this year, all things being the same next year, now you own a home, you didn't pay the IRS $4,290, you get to use that for your housing payment. So divide this number, Dean, by 12, 4,290.
357.
Okay. So this $1,427 payment, take out your tax savings is how much?
357.
What's 1427 minus 357?
1069.
1069 is what you're really paying for this house. Does that make sense? This blows buyers away. And then I would say, how much are you guys throwing away in rent? Just curious. 900, 950? geez, you can own a home for $100 more than you're paying in rent.
Did you go down the change withholdings route?
Nope, but good point. So the buyer says to me, well, that's great. Like, this works 8 out of 10 times. They say, wow, we weren't aware of that. What if the buyer says 2 out of 10 times, well, Brian, we still gotta come up with the $1,427. What I would suggest is that you change your withholdings. You know how you can file 0, 1, 2, 3? Change your withholdings so that you get more take-home pay at the end of the week. And you can talk with your accountant so that your take-home pay goes up by $357 a month. So at the end of the year, you're not going to have any tax liability. Because what you're doing every week with your withholdings is you're paying the IRS in advance for your taxes. Why do that? They don't pay you interest on your money. Change your withholdings so that you're paying them less on a monthly basis. You're taking home more, and now you can use that to meet your needs. There's 2 other things that I wanted to talk about. When you're showing your 6 homes or your 4 homes, you do it by geography. A lot of realtors say, you know what? Contrast is a good thing when selling. So I'm going to show them a dump, and I'm going to show them a gem. I'm going to show them a dump, and I'm going to show them a gem, so that the gems keep rising to the top. To me, time is more important than that. And if you limit your showings to 4 to 6 homes, you don't need to subscribe to this. There'll be contrast. They'll be able to do that. So you're going to show based on geography. You're leaving from the office, or you're meeting at the first house, or wherever you're starting, you're going to go, you want to go in a circle, so that your start and end point meet with the houses along the way. In other words, you don't want to go to this home, and then to this home, and then back to this home. Does that make sense? So from a time standpoint, think in terms of where you're going geographically wise. The other thing is, where we're showing properties in rural areas, and Lynn lives in Massachusetts, for example, and she's working in the Salem market, you are going to get lost working with buyers. That's okay. Let them know. Pre-frame that. Use that as a pre-frame. Hey guys, we've got a great day today. I've got 6 homes scheduled for you. 10 minutes each home, because I figure that you're going to want to look at the top home probably a second time. But I just want to let you know, we may get lost, and I don't want you to be, I hope that's okay. So let them know. It happens. And lastly, I just want to give you some closing dialogues. When you're at the property, and they're going through it, you're using your sensory acuity to read their body language. You don't feel like you have to, this is the kitchen, this is the bathroom. I don't present the property. How many of you agree the property presents itself? They either like it or they don't like it. There's so many agents out there that, but look at the cupboard space in this cabinet. Yeah, but smell the cat piss. They don't like it. So let the property present itself. Let the property present themselves. Don't get into, this is this is that. And the less you say, the better off you are. What I want you to do is keep narrowing it to 2 properties. You show 2, which one did you like better? This one, this one. Before they get back in their own car, which one did you like? Because what you're doing is you're setting that before they get in their own car, hopefully they're following you in the best case. Which one did you like better? Before you guys follow me to the next one, which of the 2 did you rise to the top? When you get to the last house, and you've got the one that's moved to the top, geez, it sounds like you guys really like this one. Would you like to go back to the office and talk about it in more depth? Because you're not going to do the purchase and sale right there. I mean, it happens, but in most cases, they feel awkward. So, and they don't want, hey, do you guys want to write it up? That's much more pressure than, why don't we go back to the office and talk about it? And lastly, use the privacy rule that we talked about to your advantage. And be conscious of your time. If you know that you're going to write up a purchase and sale, and it's going to take you time, and they're ready for it, rather than make them sit here in the conference room, hey, why don't you, it's going to take me about 30 minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to make some phone calls, I want to check my voicemail, I want to walk and chew gum at the same time, I want to spin a bunch of plates, I want to make a lot of money. You guys go have lunch and meet me back in an hour. And then they come back for 1 hour.